Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where we intro the day's matches before the timer hits 0 and we jump into Champion Select. Yesterday, we witnessed how much the game has changed since preseason, but Zyrene took a magnifying glass to what we're seeing in the bot lane. Take a look.
Thank you, Dash. I'm here to talk about the state of the lane, and today we're talking about the state of the bottom lane in particular. At Worlds, we ended up seeing an Ardent Sensor carry meta come out, and then at All-Stars and Kespa Cup, we saw it shift to poke, where we saw Jhin, Misfortune, and Ashe take Comet and push people out of lane. Now, we're seeing Sustain rise up as what's countering that poke and pushing it out. So we're seeing things like Fleet Footwork, Overheal, and Relic Shield be taken on AD carries to make sure that they can sustain and negate all of the poke that would have been coming out. But because this is so powerful and all of these were slightly buffed in the last few patches, we're pretty much seeing everybody take this. 78% of the AD carries in NA, EU, LCK, and LMS have taken Fleet Footwork as their keystone. The others are pretty much Kalista with Lethal Tempo, and then Ezreal with Kleptomancy. But aside from that, what that means is because you can't really let poke sit in the laning phase and it's being sustained through, hyper carries are going to start coming up. Tristana, Vayne, we're also going to see some Kog'Maw as well, because when that poke doesn't stick and the laning phase means less, hyper carries get to that mid-late game easier, and they're going to have that late game teamfight impact. And speaking of that impact, when you have those types of laning phases that don't matter as much, the supports also shift. No poke supports. We're going to be seeing some Tahm Kench. We're going to be seeing Braum to protect that AD carry, to keep that hyper carry safe. We're going to see some Shen for playmaking, some Taric on top of that, and also a lot of Alistar, because these guys have that mid-late game potential when the lane phase doesn't mean as much. So the whole bottom lane is kind of shifted, and a player that I think this could really favor is OpTic's AD carry Arrow. The former MVP is a guy that really hasn't had the best laning phases in the last split, but he's always been a teamfight god. His Twitch, his Kog'Maw are things you always have to consider in Champion Select and look out for, because he would be able to crush a whole team with them sometimes. But the state of the game never stays the same. Patches come all the time. And in 8.2 on the PBE, there's currently a nerf to Relic Shield that dissuades AD carries from taking it. So, until further notice, that's the state of the lane. Back to you, Dash.
Thank you very much, Zyrene. Just one of the many areas in which we're seeing experimentation with Runes Reforged on the new patches. I want to continue this conversation about the state of the game outside of bot lane and what interesting rune choices you think pros are utilizing here in the opening week.
Yeah, one thing I think is the single most powerful rune in the game would be Super Magical Boots. Because it's 350 gold of value basically with the move speed, and you just get them at 10 minutes. And a lot of champions don't want to build them until then anyway. And then on top of that, I think Stopwatch is contributing to some of the slower early games we've been seeing, because even though it does enable tower dives, it's much easier to avoid tower dives with it.
Affectionately known as free-ass boots here on the North American LCS broadcast.
Yeah, absolutely dominating the meta. It's not just in bot lane. This is every single person getting these boots. Clutch Gaming had a last game, yesterday. All 5 of them took it. It feels like the kind of thing where like, yeah, it's nice to get some extra stats and this and that, but you know what's great? Just free money.
Money.
Inspiration.
Get it. I'll take
money in a nutshell.
Feel free to throw me money.
All right, what do you want for your birthday? I'll take some cash.
Yeah, just go ahead and throw
some
me some
shoes.
cash. Here we go. Predictions for the day. Both of you sitting with 3 correct and 2 incorrect from yesterday. The only difference in predictions coming in Game 5. So one of you will come out the other end of this weekend as a loser. Just want to point that out. But let's talk about this difference in Echo Fox Clutch Gaming. Defend yourselves here.
This was one where it was like my mind's telling me no, and I was like, I should go with Clutch Gaming. Yeah. I ended up going with my mind in Clutch Gaming. I'm a very logical person.
Right. Yeah.
So they were someone who I think is a much better team all around, and the big concern is in the top lane, where Solo had a good performance yesterday, which is the only reason I'm sticking with them, because he was able to do well in the counter matchup. I know there's a big difference between Lorlo and Huni, but I'm hoping that they can actually stick with this. They'll be able to keep him safe enough. Give him counter pick, just do it to stay stable in the lane. The rest of your team should be better and should outperform Echo Fox.
Yeah, and I think this is a conflicting matchup for sure, and that's why we would defer on it.
Right.
But I have been iffy on whether or not I'm buying the cryptocurrency that is Echo Fox with their crazy roster. Even just yesterday, Clutch Gaming, you saw 7 kills to 2, 15 kills to 2. That is technically a more impressive win versus what I think is a more impressive opponent. Right? And then on top of that, I'll look at the mismatch. I think Huni is absolutely on his game. We know that Solo is going to be the largest question mark on that Clutch Gaming roster. And then, right, if how much will Huni smash versus how much will Lyra and Febiven beat up on the mid lane of Echo Fox? But Dardoch played great yesterday, and I think he can do some protection. So a lot of volatility in this matchup for obvious reasons, but kind of like yesterday when you're asking, like, why would you pick Echo Fox over FlyQuest? I'm like, because Huni.
Right.
And Mark continues to doubt Huni, picking against him
That's
twice.
right. You picked against him yesterday. You were incorrect, but you have more faith in Clutch Gaming being able to control that variable this time around.
Right.
Huni will be the reason I beat Mark in predictions this week.
Okay.
For the
there you
year.
have it, ladies
And the year, yeah.
I'm very excited that it's Game 5, so we really are going to have the tie break in that 5th game. One other team I want to talk about heading into the day is Cloud9. Did pick up a win yesterday in the day opener, but had to make it a comeback against CLG, one of the rosters that you're very hot on. So how do you feel about Cloud9's day 1 performance and looking ahead against a presumably easier opponent in Golden Guardians?
Yeah, this might sound a little strange, but they are who we thought they were. Even though I thought they would lose to CLG, they, I think, outdid them in draft with the Zillion, and that was the game decider. Because early on in the game, that top side of the map, which was a huge question mark, was a huge detriment to them. Svenskeren fell behind in the jungle. Licorice also died twice and lost his turret. And in normal circumstances, unless you have a huge compositional advantage like C9 had in that game, they would have lost. So yes, mid lane, bot lane is still strong. Huge question marks in the top lane, in my opinion.
I think both teams kind of came out looking good for game 1. CLG executed on a good game plan early on. C9 had a better draft, and then were able to play that draft out once they were able to stabilize. So both teams had high points for me in that game.
All right, well, earlier Svenskeren shared with us how different the team environment is on his new squad.
Moving into the Cloud9 house was pretty easy experience for me because everyone is super like relaxed kind of. So even when we're scrimming, it doesn't feel like stressful at all. Like compared to my old team, it was just a lot of stress and it would get really heated and a lot of arguments and stuff. So in Cloud9, I think everyone is more open. Like when you do a mistake, and it's just a lot easier to like move on and actually like admit your mistake rather than get into like 20 minutes arguments after every single game. So yeah, I'm just happy about the super relaxed.
I mean, let's talk about team environment and what that can do for players, you know, in the moment on the stage. Again, if you're in a high pressure situation where mistakes in an organization or a team are looked at or yelled at, you know, and it was such a critical eye, it's a lot harder to recover in the moment like Svenskeren had to do, accepting the fact that he misplayed early, and his team in the draft is what kind of built him back up and got him on an even playing field.
I mean, you have to imagine that working with Sneaky and Licorice is going to be easier than Haunter and Doublelift just purely in terms of the personality types in the team. And sometimes, while it's coming from a good place of like, I want to figure out what we did wrong, let's talk about it. At some point, it's like if you're getting into 20-minute arguments over the amount of value you're getting from that argument is horribly based off the timing that you're spending on it.
Yeah, and when you see this move, on paper it should work and can work for Svenskeren if he's given more freedom to be who he wants to be on this team. He's been a great jungler in the past, Worlds multiple times, carried tons of playoff games over in the LCS. So he's got it in him as long as he has the environment for it to work.
To me, that's where the interesting discussion lies, is because I think if you stack contracts and Svenskeren's performances up against each other in 2017, it's kind of hard to decide who really performs.
Contracts is better.
And arguably contracts, right? So a lot of people looking at this move on paper and they're going, what did Cloud9 do in the offseason? But when you start to look at personality and what team environment can do to unlocking a player, returning Svenskeren to that Lee Sin Worlds performance form, if he's given permission, more ownership over his decisions, maybe we do see a meteoric return. You know, for this player.
Yeah, and for enough of these teams that are talking about long-term, now that we're franchised and we no longer have relegation, like work ethic and history of work ethic is very important, and Svenskeren has those things.
All right, but now refocusing back towards that first matchup of the day, PowerOfEvil shared with us his expectations versus a thriving Team Liquid.
I don't think we have anything to lose because no one expects us to win against them. At the same time, if we were going to win, it's going to be a huge upset. So it's just we can only win in this matchup, and we can learn a lot because if we lose like 30-40 minutes against them and pull up a good show, losing early in the split is not that bad because you can instantly improve and kind of drop in reality if you are really bad, and if that happens later in the split, it's really hard to pick up and to improve again after winning like let's say a few like weeks in a row.
I mean, PowerOfEvil says they can only win in this matchup.
You can still lose.
Yeah, I was going to say, we might want to clarify to him that losing is still a possibility. But what I'm going to do is return now to another win conditions segment here. This time around, though, not going to make it easy for one of you, as you have to defend OpTic's ability to win this game. And as you chose Team Liquid yesterday for your prediction, Mark, I'm going to flip the tables on you and make you defend OpTic.
You can say it's because you trust me more to argue on their behalf.
Or yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah. For me, my advice for them, the win condition would be yourself. You heard Zabuteen kind of talking about it, how it's a sloppy meta. You can find wins and things. And in their game yesterday, we saw them picking some slightly different meta things. They had Morgana into Braum. They had Rengar taken relatively early on. And those things work together in a really interesting way where you can put the black shield on the Rengar, have him go in. Morgana beats Braum. So they have these kinds of things that they're doing that we haven't really seen that much out of other teams yet. And they can hopefully use that to get an advantage in the laning phase. And you heard Zabuteen also talking about how tempo-focused they are, how tempo-focused Team Liquid is. And if they can get ahead early on and keep driving that, it might put Team Liquid on the back foot.
Yeah, and for as much as PowerOfEvil says, like, oh, no matter what we can win, that mindset has helped him succeed a lot in the past when he's come in as an underdog. And OpTic is clear underdogs in this game based off of preseason expectations and even what we saw yesterday.
Okay.
But as far as having a letdown game for Team Liquid, they need to treat OpTic like they treated TSM. They got up for that match. They were hyped. Everyone wanted to win from Doublelift. Everyone was on their best behavior, playing safe, punishing mistakes. If they go into this, and we know it's just a Doublelift soundbite, but if there's a level of disrespect towards this OpTic team of we're way better than these guys and we can disrespect them, like Doublelift lost to PowerOfEvil at the World Championship, right? Arrow was an MVP in just the spring split of last year. There are players on this team that demand respect. So Team Liquid needs to take them very seriously and pick a late game team comp in case something goes wrong in the early game.
They need Steve, the CEO, to go out there and make another $15,000 bet so the pressure's on their back and they have to play it like TSM. That's what they really need.
Every game. We can't sustain that kind of
Are you sure?
pressure. I don't.
Have you seen his investors?
Okay, actually, good point. Oodles of money, right?
Yeah,
Oodles.
Udillionaires. The point that Jat was making about picking for late game is good, though, because OpTic, when they didn't succeed on their tempo play, the game ended up stalling out forever, and it became the longest game that we've seen in North America, 65 minutes or whatever it was. And so pick some scaling, challenge them to be the better tempo team that they need to be to win, and then if not, you have the better players, you have the better synergy.
Yeah. I mean, I do have some questions around that bot lane today because, yes, they chose the Ezreal Morgana into a Braum lane. You know, Arrow finally got a small CS advantage, but it was a lot in part because of the matchup today against Doublelift, you know, arguably a tougher bot lane duo here. You know, there's going to be some questions around how they stack up today, Elimination and Arrow.
Yeah, and this is probably a bit of a gotcha stat, but the worst CS differential in lane yesterday was Doublelift. Against Sven and Xmithie, even though they were up on gold because they killed them a bunch from ganks. So a little bit strange. And then Arrow had the second best CSD, but they didn't take the turret and they didn't actually make advantages off of it. So that's what really has to happen. I think the world of we won by 7 CS, therefore we won the lane and we are better is over. It's about how much pressure you're creating and whether you're paying those advantages forward. So that's where Arrow and Elimination have to do something.
It's a perfect example because, you know, Doublelift lost lane by 13 CS or whatever it was to Sven and Xmithie, but Xmithie made the mistake. So you're like, yeah, okay, you won lane, but what was the net result?
All right, well, it's a lopsided matchup in terms of analysis, but anything can happen in a best of one and so early on into the season. That's going to do it for us here at the State Farm Analyst Desk. Now to toss it out to the casters to get us in the game. Guys, take it away.
Thank you very much, Dash. We are back at the casting desk. Beautiful job with the countdown as we are almost into game. We are now on patch 8.1 as we have known for the past few weeks, and we are about to see OpTic and TL go head-to-head. And PowerOfEvil saying they have nothing to lose here. It's kind of a win-win, but they still have to play strong to kind of feel that confidence.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have some confidence. It's still early.
Relegate yourself to that already.
Exactly. I mean, they're only down 0-1, right? If you get a win here, it would be really big for them.
Perfect.
But even as he said, if you can be competitive with Liquid, who, according to Zabuteen, is the best team in the league right now, that does bode well. Because if you can have a competitive team against the best, then you can certainly start taking games off some of the others.
So what are we thinking here in Champion Select? Who's the focus? Where's the focus? What should be first? What should be last? Give it all to me, Azel.
I think if OpTic want to stay true to what they were talking about yesterday, the fans are pumped up against Shams, like so am I. we want to see them drafting for this aggressive playstyle. We want to see them playing a tempo game. Team Liquid showed that they have very strong laners, very strong laning, but OpTic had opportunities in the early game. And if you're going to go for aggressive junglers, something that Akaadian has excelled on in the past, that is a way to take over and really start to snowball the game. So as Mark said on the desk, I want to see OpTic stay true to themselves, play your own game. Do not try to adapt that to what your opponents are going to do. You need to do what you do best.
And be a team that doesn't dwell on the errors or the problems. That's what the Zabutin has said as well. They move on from things quickly resolved, and hopefully that gets them into an advantageous position here against Team Liquid. Finalizing the initial ban phase here, Zoe, Ezreal, Gangplank, and Tristana as we wait for the final 2 bans.
Yeah, Zoe yet to get through a ban phase in the NALCS so far. Definitely a very annoying champion to deal with, such long-range poke. So much damage can come out in those combos, and no one really wanted to deal with it just yet.
They made it through once in Academy on Friday. Was not good for the opposing team. Very, very good play coming out of the Zoe, and it's hard not to anymore. Once you get her, people just kind of perfect that play right away.
Certainly so, but picks like that can be interesting when it's such an obvious pick. You can sometimes set up counter strategies to prepare for it, and that can sometimes be a bit of a trap for opponents. If you leave something up that you feel they must take,
Very true.
and you have practiced against it and have a strategy prepared, can be pretty powerful. But OpTic going to be looking for more of a late game carry here.
Yeah.
Arrow yesterday was playing Ezreal, did have a very good game, but getting him onto the Kog'Maw really does set you up for the mid and the late game if you can build a composition to protect him.
Yep, usually seeing that Kalista as well on the ban list, and the Kog'Maw and the Tahm Kench being a bit of a combination lately. We see the Kench banned. OpTic still wants that Kog'Maw. They feel like they can protect it, and we're waiting for Team Liquid's second pickup now.
Expecting to see an Ornn or a Braum here, because I feel like you don't want to give over that pair to your opponent. If you do take the Ornn away, then your opponents can take the Braum, you can take the Braum here, and that can kind of sometimes block the utility of that Ornn with the ultimate in team fights. But if you take neither here, it opens up the possibility for OpTic to grab both, and then you can't actually easily block out the Call of the Forge God with that ultimate, but they are going to go.
Welter says
for their mid
Malzahar,
lane.
please.
Yeah.
Interesting. So getting a few good power picks to start off for Team Liquid. They feel like they can revolve around those picks. Even if OpTic Gaming gets those 2 you were just talking about, that Braum and possibly the Ornn to come in here.
I think it would be a nice couple picks. It doesn't mean they're going to go for it, but
Right.
I mean, Braum combines well with the Kog'Maw, offering some protection there. I do think that the Ornn is such a solid, strong team fighter if you're going to be looking for that sort of a play style, but going more for comfort here with PowerOfEvil. It's his most played champion all time by far. He's obviously famous, kind of for his more unique builds with it as well, going for things like the Nashor's Tooth Orianna.
Got to go for those late game fights. Not seeing too many tanky things this time, so we may not get to see that tried and true build from him. But there is that Ornn pickup, so they got the shield at least for the Kog'Maw.
Yeah.
Braum's still on the table, however, but Ornn is locked in for Zig in that top lane.
Exactly, and my only issue with this is why not try to take both? Is Orianna so heavily contested? Is it going to be banned away when Malzahar's already taken for your opponents? Maybe it would, but Braum certainly seems like the obvious pick here now for Team Liquid. Braum Kalista is a good combination, and having the Unbreakable does ban that out, but neither team's really highly prioritizing it just yet and focusing more on strong lanes. So this is something that Team Liquid has done very well with in the past. Gnar is such a comfort pick for Impact, and he can be very dominant in the side lanes. That's kind of where he got most of his fame, I would say, in NA with the top dive playing Gnar, and they've drafted some really powerful solo laners for themselves.
Yeah. Looks like Mark so far getting what he wished out of the game. Everybody being themselves so far. No real just straight counters. Seems like everybody getting what they came in with the idea of. Braum, there is that ban coming out from Team Liquid. And OpTic now, 20 seconds to decide their first phase 2 ban.
Yeah, very interesting. OpTic not going to be able to take the Braum, but obviously, Team Liquid not concerned about not having that for themselves to be able to block out that Ornn ultimate. It has been so common throughout the different regions, LCK, NA, EU, to be picking Braum into Ornn because of that. Ornn, obviously, we have to remember, can still go support. We did see Hakuo play it, can more commonly go top lane, and which is what I am expecting, but you obviously have the opportunity to swap that around if Zig thinks that he has perhaps a very strong counter pick for Gnar or something along those lines.
Junglers all the way down to phase 2 picks as they're going to get pinched slightly here. Possibly another support on the side from Team Liquid to make sure Elimination has a tough time, and it is his Morgana. Been playing that quite strong lately. And what is OpTic Gaming's final ban?
Could be looking at something like an Alistar. I mean, there are options to deal with that if it goes through, but Alistar Kalista has been such a powerful combo for so long, really since the champion was first introduced into the game. Kalista has always comboed extremely well. Alistar is very strong in this meta.
Like a Hex Flash. Yeah.
Exactly. Extremely powerful initiation, not only with the Hex Flash, but with the Fate's Call, Kalista Ultimate, giving you another engaged opportunity. So I think it is a very smart ban here from OpTic to deny that sort of a combo.
All right, Team Liquid looking for a jungler. Possibly could leave that up to Xmithie to hold out the game. Olleh has also been known to get some counter picks on his teams as well.
Yeah, we haven't really seen much attention on jungle in the picks and bans, just the Gragas really. But things like Eve and Jarvan are available. Things like the Rengar that we saw a number of times is available. So there still is a lot of options coming out for the junglers.
Nice, that Thresh Kalista combo coming out. Bit of safety, bit of Fate's Call to get in and out with that Lantern as well in either play.
This is pretty interesting, though, for Xmithie to be saved the last pick. Tells me that he has somewhat of a conditional pick, something that if the other team is running perhaps too squishy of a team, you can go for a Rengar. If not, you go for a tank, things like that. And that is a little bit of a tell, but you're not exactly sure what the conditions Team Liquid is looking for. If you are OpTic, you can try to disrupt this a little bit by maybe going for something more well-rounded. Maybe if you're worried about them taking the Sejuani, you could grab that up here or something along those lines. But you're just trying to limit your opponent's options and think what Xmithie is waiting for. Why do they save the last pick for the jungler? And Jarvan is a very good overall jungle pick here for Akaadian. You can go full tank. You can go more aggressive builds also. And it is going to be the Sejuani. So really, two very powerful team fighting combos on either side. And it seems like it's going to be less about the tempo in the early games, more about the mid-game team fighting, more about, that sort of coordination than it is about just purely dominating these lanes.
Currently looking at the teams, I feel like OpTic Gaming is going to have somewhat of a fast fight. If they do, if Cosmic Radiance wears off, I feel like Team Liquid might be able to walk around that, figure out that timing, and continue to add the damage. It's not exactly, we're going to hit you and pop you from Team Liquid. They're fine to fight a long fight.
They certainly are. And while we have been seeing generally very passive bottom lanes with Fleet Footwork, with Relic Shield and Overheal, as Irene was talking about in his segment earlier, Kog'Maw and Taric is still exploitable. This is a Thresh plus Kalista. They are playing with Ignite, so that is one of the most powerful early game AD carries and an aggressive support. So if Olleh can get those hooks onto the right targets, if you're bringing in a jungler with the Lantern, that is certainly one area of attack I would be looking at for Team Liquid. And if their bottom lane can dominate, maybe you can turn this kind of late game composition that OpTic is trying to craft into someone that can never really get there.
Get that Arrow MVP back in the list. Get a volley of him going, and you'll get that MVP back out. OpTic Gaming, you see their squad on the table looking to do what they can against Team Liquid. Coming out incredibly strong here to start the NALCS 2018 season. We'll see what they can do as we're back onto the Rift here for day 2 of week 1.
It's going to be a good one. I think there's a lot of opportunities for Akaadian to get involved early on. Jarvan does have some very strong early ganks if he wants to look for it. There are things you can do, level 2 cheeses, level 3 ganks that are very powerful. There's a lot of kind of clear options that they have. Sejuani, I would say, yes, you can pull off early ganks, but it's much more about getting a safe early clear, getting the levels, trying to get to level 6, and being more powerful in those mid-game fights once you have your ultimate available.
And now, is there an imperative lane that we see Xmithie or Akaadian kind of wanting to start at or hover more towards that would give them a better advantage in the beginning?
I mean, I think really you have to be looking at the bot lane. If you're looking from OpTic side, if you can put Doublelift and Olleh behind, that can be very powerful. If they falter in the early game on a Kalista and the Kog'Maw's already outpacing you, she's likely going to be stronger in the later stages. And likewise for Xmithie, I mean, if you can start to snowball that bottom lane, if the Kalista and the Thresh can get ahead, you can be rotating around in the mid game, finding picks with your ultimate, really starting to take over and dominating. Plus, when you have the Kalista on the bot side and you get ahead, you can take over the Dragon Pit, get those neutral objectives. The ceasefire was called off there from Arrow.
He had to go in. So like a sneak up. We see the Relic starts as well for both sides. On the bot with a little bit of overheal as they begin their blue and red buff respectively to start things off.
Something I'm going to be pretty interested to follow here for Elimination is, does he actually go tier? It's something that I've been liking on Taric for a long time, and it seems to be really catching on in pro play. We saw it in LCK. We've seen it in NALCS now as well. And it's really about how it interacts with his passive, because Bravado, the passive, every time you auto, it lowers the cooldowns on your spells.
Right.
So once you have a couple ranks in your queue, you can essentially Q for a 2-stack heal, auto, and you immediately have another 2-stack heal. So having the super high mana regen of a tier, as it, yes, it can delay your sight zone, can delay some of the big item completions, gives you a massive amount of sustain, and can sometimes help you through these lanes that maybe would bully you out otherwise in the early game, just simply through the non-stop damage, the non-stop sustain.
One of those things that becomes such a nuisance. You usually walk in, walk out, get everything you need here. Olleh doing a nice job to grab a little bit of brush control, almost taking out that vision. And he pushes off with a level 2 from Doublelift.
Yeah, exactly. And Arrow and Lemonation know that they could not actually contest that early level 2, so they are going to back off very early on. And it's going to be up to them to CS well under turret, because you really cannot contest this lane until you have some levels, until you have some more items, because in the straight-up fight, if someone gets hooked, it's going to be very, very dangerous, especially with Olleh having Ignite.
Pobelter kind of hugging the bottom side of mid. May not alert Akaadian that Xmithie would be topside. Usually see the jungler huffing that potential protection. And here, both with double buff will now fight over the Raptors. A little bit of a push onto Pobelter keeps him at bay here. PowerOfEvil would have a better route into the fight. Good back and forth, though, as a few love taps are delivered by the junglers at the Raptor camp.
Yeah, and it's an important smite there for Xmithie, because these are kind of the early stages where Akaadian does have the ability to get aggressive. He is perhaps more powerful, can get away with trying to steal some of these camps, but Xmithie simply outsmites him here, doesn't end up losing much of that Raptor camp, and that really is kind of excelling him forward and pushing him forward to that level 6 where he's going to start feeling very, very comfortable.
Distance now for the bot lane. May see a bit more aggression coming out. Nice silence and prolific visions onto PowerOfEvil as he keeps his ball in a forward position. Always like to see that from Orianna players. Keep your opponent on their toes. 21 to 22, things are pretty quiet here in the bot lane. As I said, Arrow, Elimination, know when they got to play it safe. Just keep the farm going.
And you can see, though the junglers have not shown up in bot lane, just look at the ward coverage on the bottom side of the map. They know that this is the focus, where they have to either keep their laners safe or enable themselves to get these ganks. So focus on the early scuttle. Akaadian using his smite there. So many wards littered across the bottom side of the map. An early ward in the tri-brush from TL, because you either have to protect yourself from the gank, or you have to isolate that 2v2 if you're RTL to try to really pull something off. So a lot of focus here on the bot side from both teams, and we'll see if either one can really make a move to kind of swing it in their direction.
And it's even more true that it's focused on the champions. I mean, nothing against an Ocean Drake, but usually you don't get that much vision for an Infernal or a Mountain either.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right that they are trying to protect and just figure out what's going on down here. Looks like that's going to leave Impact and Zig on an island for quite a while. So this could get very interesting, especially if PowerOfEvil and Pobelter kind of start to have it switch in their lane, and one of them can start to roam at 6.
And Akaadian is down here, not spotted by the Kalista ward, but Xmithie does see him, and again, both junglers still hovering all around the bot side. You can see Akaadian, despite the fact that 2 camps are up on his top side, camps are respawning for Xmithie, they have not yet head there, because they need to make sure that this bottom lane is stable, that this bottom lane is safe. And we can take a little moment as the action kind of dissipates to talk about some of the rune choices that are pretty interesting here. Yeah. Some people I've seen commenting on why would a Sejuani take Fleet Footwork? It's actually about the rune kind of set bonuses, the stats that you get for taking the precision first. Giving the attack speed to Sejuani really massively helps with that early clear, because in the previous Rune and Mastery system, you saw many tank junglers take a lot of early attack speed to help with that clear.
Right.
And that's something that this is enabling her to do. And even Fleet Footwork for Impact, also going to give him the attack speed and allow him to kind of sustain through and heal up from some of the early power that someone like an Ornn has.
Xmithie walking into danger. It's going to be Akaadian and PowerOfEvil just on the end. We wondered if the level 6 roam would come in from PowerOfEvil, and it does. And as you said, Xmithie with a fast flash on those fingers gets himself to safety.
But hey, establishing some pressure on the top side, they get Sejuani's flash out. Akaadian is trying his best to utilize this early advantage he has with his champion pick. So far, Xmithie, though, equal to the task, is actually level 5 first, thanks in part to the fact that he outsmited Akaadian at that Raptor camp. And this was a nice move from OpTic, not only because they found Xmithie in the jungle, but even if they did not, they could have actually gone up to the top side around Impact, and as he's teleporting back in, perhaps pulled off a dive, which would have been devastating for that top side of Team Liquid.
Top lane's hitting 6 now, as we mentioned them. Going forward back. Zig has Ignite currently in that lane. Looks like he'll take the long walk back as well for now. Nope. Got to teleport in because he didn't use it. I was wondering. A good push by Impact. Makes the switch, and he does get that TP in.
And that's one of the really nice advantages of taking the Unsealed Spellbook. As you point out, he starts with the Ignite, perhaps giving him a little bit more lane pressure, and had Xmithie not been there to intercept, they could have actually dove with the Ignite there and perhaps pulled off an early kill. Instead, he doesn't find the opportunity, just swap over to the teleport, TP right back to lane. And because of the Summoner Spellbook, he has a lower cooldown on that TP anyway. And despite the fact that Impact used his teleport earlier, they'll come up around a similar time.
Impact taking care of some things on the to-do list, getting the Blast Cone out to keep his top lane a little safer. And he actually doesn't have too many wards at the moment, so he's just biding that time, saying, I'll use my jump to get out. But the vision is currently not there, still has quite a bit on his teleport as well. Xmithie's on the bot side, so he does have to stay pretty careful. But again, that attention is towards the bot lane, so he might just get out lucky on this one.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's actually pretty interesting to see Doublelift went for a super early Targon's upgrade. So kind of saying, hey, maybe this lane is stabilizing. Instead of going for additional combat power, he gets a little bit more survivability. Yeah. He's getting extra gold generation for his support also, with a faster cooldown on that shield. But they are going to be going straight for this Ocean Dragon. They have the Kalista secure. We'll see if OpTic is going to want to try to challenge. They're coming over.
Hinge down both sides, no Cosmic Radiance from the support. Smite goes down to Xmithie. That's the stopwatch, and he is surrounded by 3. He'll be going down. And that's going to be first blood going over to Arrow for the Ocean Drake to the side of TL.
Yeah, and that is the exact person you want that first blood on. Get it onto the hyper carry, and that is the result of the pressure that PowerOfEvil and Akaadian put in on the top side. If Xmithie has his flash available, he likely gets out of that fight. So this is, a couple steps back that they are now getting the payoff from that early move. Very nice stuff from OpTic. They felt that they had the power to do that. In the early stages, you actually take a lot of damage from the dragon. Xmithie was already relatively low from it.
A little wallop, a quick bop. It is Ornn, though. Should be able to get himself out of this. Searing charge, bellows. But a great damage by Impact. Playing it more aggressive than the Ornn is basically what you have to do as soon as he gets a hold of that lane. He gets a hold of it, basically the map.
Yeah, certainly so. Impact trying to assert his lane dominance, but back here to this dragon fight. Look at Xmithie's health. Just getting that low simply from the damage he's taken, and this is kind of forcing TL to back off. The rotation came in very quickly here from OpTic. They isolate Xmithie in the pit. You can see Akaadian camping on the lantern, so he cannot actually click on it. They're both trying to stand on top of that to deny that exit, and even able to give over the kill to Arrow is just fantastic stuff for them.
The mid, PowerOfEvil doesn't miss much here and actually cleans up to be ahead in CS. Pobelter just pushes that wave up, and now Xmithie back to farming his jungle. We wondered, would Akaadian kind of be able to route Xmithie, figure out if he was the mastermind behind the early game, and so far, he's kind of put a stall out on what Xmithie has been doing.
Yeah, he certainly has, but Xmithie is going to be pretty happy because he's level 7, despite the fact that he did die. He is about even in farm. They did get the Ocean Dragon, so it's not any sort of devastating thing that has happened to them. They're feeling both pretty good about what they have accomplished in the early stages, and I think we're at a pretty even game state. Yep. Another thing that is kind of interesting about the way that Impact was playing the lane there, using his ultimate and everything aggressively, trading his HP out, is the fact that he has fleet footwork, means he can heal back up off of these trades, whereas it's going to be harder for Zig to do so. He does not have, a Corrupting Potion. He does not have, that kind of innate same sustain from runes. So, it's going to be about trying to trade aggressively, getting the Black Cleaver, likely building for the Frozen Mallet, and trying to isolate this 1v1 where he can whittle down the Ornn, force him back to base, start pressuring turrets, and really kind of exploit his advantage that way.
A kill to Arrow, being separated a bit by CS on Doublelift, that lane going in his favor. They're going to be able to pretty much even out on items. Still, if Arrow can be protected, it will be a very, very big Kog'Maw come this late game. Happily sitting still in this bot lane. I think we'll get a little bit of an extended laning phase out of this one until the AD carries or bot lanes get where they want, based on when they'll be able to move to the next objectives.
Exactly, and I think if you're OpTic, you're happy as long as this is a slow bot lane. If you're not dying, if you're farming, you're still getting experience, you're comfortable to play this very slowly. And yes, he is down some farm, but thanks to the first blood going over, he's up a little bit of gold. and things are looking pretty good despite the fact that the lane position is very nice for Team Liquid. They are trying to utilize their early advantage as best as they can by freezing this wave. They're holding it against their opponents. So you see Arrow and Lemonation now saying, you know what, we can't actually enter the lane. They're being forced out simply because of the wave management that Doublelift and Olleh have been putting on. And that is really a really strong way to actually use their advantage. You don't always just have to push it in and get turret damage, threaten the dive. You can simply hold it against your opponents.
Oh boy. Is it worth it though? Over the wall. He's good. Arctic Assault to safety. Also, OpTic a little inclined to think that there might have been a teleport bottom. You saw Olleh just a second ago just walk up into the face of Lemon and Arrow and put a very deep ward in that bottom brush. Could have been an impact teleport. They cleared it right away and said, no, no thank you.
I mean, this is actually an insane amount of vision for OpTic. Look at the bottom side river. How many wards are there? That is just an enormous amount of vision. They're so focused on protecting Arrow, on protecting Lemonation. There's no possible route really to sneak through here except for a lane gank. That would be the only way Xmithie could get in, is if he can get Lantern through the lane and find his way in there. But they have such good coverage, and this is really speaking to their game plan and executing well on that. Xmithie immediately seeing they need to back off.
Cosmic Radiance comes down. Talked about the long fights and who they might be in favor of if the protection can't be there. Lemonation almost gets himself to safety. Olleh holds the hook.
Pobelter's here.
God almost locks it up. Pobelter taking a bit of a risky position.
Oh, the mid laners here. They have the shockwave available.
Play onto Akaadian. Can he get the Cataclysm in? He cannot. They go for
the Zodiac.
Immediately onto the stopwatch. Ultimates are being dodged and routed in this fight. But the kill still comes in through Pobelter. And it looks like the 1-for-1 will stop there, but OpTic still pushes by.
OpTic has the health advantage. They have gotten a couple of members down low, and they're going to look to push for this turret. They want to knock down the first turret here.
Olleh looking for a hook, but is there a follow-up? Fate's Call is used. The box is used. They can't really crowd control much of what's there. Not going to attack anybody. Zig gets out without turret aggro. Very smartly played, and it looks like Arrow gets the Voidoo's down to separate the fight. Impact pushing top the whole time.
Yeah, Impact does knock down the first turret there. TL able to hold on, and because of that, they have a gold advantage, but Akaadian!
Ooh! Pulls the rug right out from under Xmithie as he feels like he's safe to get a little bit of vision for Doublelift and Olleh to farm, but it was not safe yet.
What an explosive game. The rotations made so quickly by both teams. PowerOfEvil and Akaadian rushing down the river to support that bot lane, and the instant TP from Zig does allow them to turn that around, but Impact playing for himself, playing to get this side lane advantage, does get the first turret, which is going to mean he's going to have so much extra gold on his own person, and that is where all the advantage is going to be for them. But here it is again. It was spotted early, but not enough time to react. The early ultimate, very smart. Lemonation kind of trying to take the sacrifice for himself, but you see the TP down for Pobelter. Zig is already TP'd down here as well. If you look at the minimap, you see Orianna and J4 coming down. And watch Pobelter's play on this. They're looking for the engage. Nice play from Olleh there to push back the shockwave. Then the stopwatch is used actually on that shockwave. So really nice mini kind of micro plays within this fight, and very impressive stuff from both sides. And I've got to say, I'm actually extremely impressed with how OpTic is playing out the early games. TL is at a gold advantage, but they were expected to be the heavy favorites coming into this, and you have got to be somewhat encouraged by this early start as an OpTic fan.
I mean, it's not even really not considering that OpTic was going to do that. That was just an all-out, very well done play. A little overconfidence maybe even on Pobelter's.
Oh, they're going for the engage again.
And TL feels like they want to get it back right away. The jungler right in the back pocket of this bot lane. That's what we figured would happen all game. Xmithie trying to come up with a kill. Pobelter solidifies that one for himself. It's now Lemonation. It's going to be in the eyes of Doublelift. The Malefic Visions picks up another one. Will Double get one for himself. That's going to be the stopwatch going down. And Xmithie picks up number 3 in the bot lane as it's 4-3 overall.
Nice roams again there from TL, getting down to the bot side, and Olleh has been so good on this Thresh, finding the hooks. It looked like that was a fight that could be turned around by Arrow. He had his flash available. He had the Rage Blade complete. And,
absolutely.
Getting that Rage Blade stacked up looked like he might be able to take down Doublelift, but the stopwatch in combination with a great hook from Olleh onto Arrow shuts that down. And when Pobelter arrives, they get so much from that fight.
Instantly stopping Akaadian as well. having quite a good game himself. I'm sure he won't put a stop on himself. He'll keep getting to these lanes to try for the ganks. And now we see TL, just how much that kind of perturbed them. They said, okay, yeah, we need to turn on the switch as well and get something back.
Yeah, and you see just how powerful the engage is with this Kalista, right? You throw in your support with the Fate's Call, you have the box, you have the Flay, and if your Thresh can follow up properly and hit those CCs, pull in the Kog'Maw, you can really shut them down. They're looking to set something up here.
Oh
again,
boy!
Camping the brush, but do decide to back off.
You got me excited. They're like, wait, Cosmic Radiance probably up, this could go bad. They backed off, remembering the cooldowns, but they did have Xmithie in the back pocket waiting. He's going to be chasing Akaadian out of the jungle. His impact is just, he has one thing in mind, and he is doing that job, and that's keep the distraction time.
Yeah, if you can keep Ornn out of those team fights, then not having a Braum doesn't matter, right? He's not going to be able to actually join. He's putting on so much pressure on the top side, really executing well on what his job is in this game plan. You've got to say, though, scaling in full effect here for OpTic. Orianna is able to knock down the mid turret. You already have the Rage Blade as well as the Targon's 4 arrow. He's looking good. And Lemonation did go for the tier, which is more of that kind of scaling style build that we talked about earlier. So there's going to be a lot of sustain coming out from that Taric here too.
Here in mid, still so much vision towards this bot side. Really, really knowing the Kog'Maw is what they need to keep protected. Shields for him, as well as the Orianna. Even after that, the Tahm Kench gets banned out, still the Kog'Maw that Arrow wanted, still the protection game that they're going to play throughout the lanes.
They're going to go for this dive here. They just spotted Pobelter on a ward top side, and they're looking to push them back. If TL tries to defend, they will get doped, but they're just going to back off, and that's another turret going the way of OpTic, who actually takes the turret lead now. Very nicely done.
Pack Gnar's in, Gnar's out. Zig tries to get a quick clear on the minions as well so they can't get too much damage on the turret. Those massive auto attacks from Pobelter coming through. Impact does all the work. Pobelter comes in and cleans up the solo gold. Gotta feel good.
Yeah, trying to make a liar out of me. Gotta tie up the turrets. But TL still with a gold advantage. Want to keep pressing.
Yeah.
You know, I do think that this is a tougher to execute team fight team in the late game for TL because, you know, Thresh is more dependent upon hitting that hooks. Your baseline value is lower than that of a Taric with the ultimate, generally speaking. You know, and the Gnar, your baseline value is probably going to be lower than an Ornn if it comes to that 5v5 team fight. Plus, you have a Kog'Maw versus the Kalista. It's hard to say where that is going to go if the Kog'Maw is even. But TL has the ability to keep pushing. They are constantly moving around the map, looking to take down objectives. They've knocked down all the tier 1s now. They could look to establish vision control and try to knock down the Rift Herald if they want to do that next minute before it despawns. But for now, happy to just continue to move up on these turrets and try to knock them down.
The vision for OpTic has dwindled a bit on the bot side, but also not the greatest for Team Liquid. They seem to be backing off here. As they see a few members, but not where Arrow and Lemonation are. They know they're coming back, but could still be dangerous. 20 minutes on the clock as Rift Herald is going to kind of just leave this game without any attention. And another Ocean Drake to come up. 2 already to Team Liquid, so they've kind of been keeping themselves in that objective game, even though they haven't resulted in the best fights after the Dragons.
Yeah, and while those dragons are nice, they are certainly not the ones that you want when you have early dragon control with the Kalista, with the more powerful bot lane. You're hoping for the Mountain Dragons to get a Baron. You're hoping for the Infernal to kind of disrupt any scaling disadvantages that you may have. So they're not going to be happy with the ones that they've gotten, but they are still an edge, and they still should secure those.
So what is the next move? You kind of see TL up a turret here. They know you're going to want to focus the top turret with something. How do you kind of route that or get under their skin?
I think, you know, for TL, they're looking to control vision and threaten around the Baron. You have a Kalista, you have such powerful objectives secure, and Malzahar also very good at helping you take the Baron with the Voidlings to help tank that up and also offer a lot of DPS. So it's about pressuring your opponents by controlling vision, limiting their options, forcing them to check into you, and then you have such great pick with the Fate's Call, with the hook, with the Malzahar, with the ultimate coming out of Sejuani. So really it's about get vision, make your opponents make a bad choice, limit their options, and kind of choose those fights, because OpTic is going to try to stay safe.
Oh, there's that hook. Well, 1-2 hit.
Nice
Double
shockwave.
shockwave. Cosmic Radiance comes down on a good initiation. Cataclysm onto Xmithie and Pobelter locked in. Pobelter forced the flash to teleport now.
Oh, the Ornn
From
ulti.
Impact. That's the dodge, but it's the brittle on to Pobelter. No follow-up, however, as the distance is too long from OpTic to TL now.
And TL, they set up that trap but there was more OpTic members there. They weren't really sure what they were buying into as far as this fight goes. And this is a full tank J4 that they caught with a Taric supporting him, with the Orianna behind him. 4 members were already at that fight, plus Zig able to TP in faster. And despite the fact that they got the jump, OpTic gets the fight that they want, and they delay the game some more. They maintain some vision around that Baron, and OpTic has got to be feeling pretty good.
It's interesting, too, because if they got Akaadian for a second, they could kind of just take him out. He's really just a lot of health, but they don't have a second to turn on these fights. It's so quick from OpTic to just snap judgments.
And if you can't burst through the health, the Taric ultimate will come down, the Orianna shield will land.
Right.
There's a lot to really kind of back him up. And you see, Lemon Nation here around the mid lane. They're going into PowerOfEvil. Akaadian is the one jumping in front and actually getting hooked, though. And 4 members are already here. The Shockwave zones them out. The Taric ultimate comes down, and they know they have to retreat. Zig's teleport has already come in earlier, forcing out a nice flash there from Doublelift. So just good rotations and team play from OpTic. And this is, to me, a far step above what they showed us yesterday. And they're playing against a much tougher team. TL is still in the gold lead, still has a lot of options as a nice hook does land on Arrow. They're going to go for it.
Olleh in. Forge got beautiful hit back. They don't even want these fights that they're grabbing. The vision didn't spread past the hook, and they didn't know what they were getting themselves into.
I mean, Olleh just takes the hook when he hits the carry blind, but there's 5 members there from OpTic, and jumping the gun on that one was Olleh. He's going to get knocked down very quick. TL immediately realizes nothing they can do in that fight. That means Dragon goes over to OpTic. More vision goes over to OpTic, and they continually scaling up. Arrow has his QSS. You have a QSS on both the carries now. You have 3 strong front lines. You have the Taric ultimate, and we're entering into the danger zone here for Team Liquid, where if you give a 5v5 team fight to OpTic, they should win. But they are trying to sneak the Baron, and they have the possibility to do this. Lemon Nation is around. We'll see if he actually gets over there in time. They're now spotting it.
Oh, whoa, Doublelift taking quite a bit on the backside of Baron as he was taking hits over Xmithie. Lemon Nation not going to get there, and it seems like Akaadian is holding off as well, so Lemon Nation just kind of flexing the muscles, pushing them out as well. And the question is, can they keep this forward momentum up? Do they continue to know what to do next, or do they kind of have that, we're happy with where we're at, and that's what hurts?
I think that OpTic can be happy with where they are at for now. You can't sit on your laurels forever, but waiting until your Kog'Maw, for example, has his second item is going to be a big spike. When Kog'Maw is on that Hurricane, even 2-3 items can be very powerful. When you have all this protection with the front line, plus the Taric, plus the QSS, it becomes very tough to take this guy down. So I think they're the ones in the scaling advantage. And yesterday, they had such a long game, but they were kind of more of an early game tempo-based comp, as Zabutin talked about. This time they say, hey, if we're going to be able to take this team late, let's outscale them. And they're kind of turning, what Mark and Jat thought Team Liquid should do on the desk against them. They have chosen the outscaling comp, and it's TL that have this pressure to execute now. They still certainly can get a fight, and if TL takes one, they'll take down the Baron very quickly, which would put it right back in their advantage. But definitely a very close game, and one that's a lot more tightly contested than many people were expecting coming into it.
Super exciting to see as well. The early game thought would be kind of won by Xmithie, with Pobelter pushing mid and PowerOfEvil kind of having a bit of trouble. But in that sense that I said Mark still got, they are being themselves. They pick some wheelhouse champions that they're always used to. PowerOfEvil on that Orianna, Arrow on that Kog'Maw, things that they've really been known to play well on.
It's pretty interesting. Arrow elects to go, instead of something like a Hurricane, he's going straight for the Wit's End. So more defensive, and he has quite a defensive setup now. With Wit's End, with Hurricane, Tabbies, he has Targons, and he still has not used his stopwatch. So there's a lot of defensive options available for this guy, and if you overcommit on a dive, it could get turned around on you very quickly because he will be so hard to kill. Then you add in the shield of Bastion and Guardian proc from the Taric. You add in the Orianna shield. That is massively more health that you have to work through. And you have to kill him before the Taric ultimate lands, or the fight could look bad.
Damage onto Xmithie. Looking at how all these kind of items synergize as well. The Abyssal Mask over there for Zig. Once he gets into the fight, that's more damage from Arrow and PowerOfEvil. Arrow hits people, a little more damage for everybody. See what they can get as they make their way to mid now. Some forward wards being placed in lane. You can see teams doing that to make sure they have an idea of where people are splitting off. And right now, it's just jockeying for position on this mid turret. Looks like Team Liquid wants to break that open. But OpTic's not going to let it happen just yet.
it's such a battle for vision, you know, around this Baron, because if Kalista, Malzahar can get time, they can knock down the Baron, and OpTic knows that is a great way for TL to take over this game. You get the Baron buff, you have the split push advantage with Impact, you start knocking down turrets, you crack open the base, and then all of a sudden scaling advantage doesn't matter because you have a big gold lead. But if they cannot do that, if they are forced to engage into a straight-up 5v5 fight that OpTic sees coming, it's going to be extremely difficult. So it's so much about TL finding a pick, getting the vision, having that hook that they don't see, or something along those lines. But they're looking for a pick on Pobelter.
Akaadian to Pobelter. PowerOfEvil instantly cleanses that one out, and that is going to be one dead POB. Impact
in the
now.
bad spot.
You know, the first bad spot he's been in. Really going to be bad if he goes down. He's been having a free game up top. Dark passage to the light as Impact flashes to safety. The shield comes in now from the locket, and they are going to be getting him all the way home. And this is going to be tough, though. OpTic have map control now, and Doublelift was left running around that whole time, not pushing a lane, not pushing mid. It was a decision of what to do, and it seems like they're still turning Team Liquid on their head with these plays.
Yeah, what an escape there, though. Olleh flashing to get that lantern, and it looks like Impact just barely able to get away. Means that OpTic don't feel comfortable to go for the Baron because Pobelter coming back up would have his TP. So big moment for TL to get that escape, but still another good play from OpTic, who is playing the map incredibly well, who has a strong scaling comp, and finding these picks left and right. Almost got a second one, which could have blown the game wide open.
Pushing that mid, or top wave, I should say. Have to respect that, so they know a Team Liquid member will be going there, get mid pushed up again, so they still have their mid turret almost 30 minutes into the game. And it's kind of stopping Team Liquid from doing what you like as a team.
Yeah.
Well, getting into the jungle, there's such a spot of safety with that mid turret up for OpTic.
The mid turret plus a big line of vision around over to that Baron. You see 6-7 wards, and here it is again. They spot Pobelter up there. They do find him out, knock off the passive straight away. Now, this is pretty well played by Pobelter, but I believe his flash was not quite up actually during that replay. It does show up here in the spectator client, but either way, he gets knocked down with the shockwave, and then look at the escape here with Olleh coming in, trying to flash to avoid Zig's knockup, and they're not getting the extra distance on the lantern. Would have needed to flash a little bit earlier there, but either way, Impact barely escapes thanks to his support, and they are able to kind of hang on.
Job's done. That's what you got to do in that play. Feels good. Hopefully they can do it again. Lantern allowing you to get a little bit riskier in these plays, or get out of them. 6-4 here as we make that 30-minute mark. Jockey for position in mid once again, but it looks like OpTic is trying to dictate where that goes.
Yeah, they're trying to push up mid lane to get control of the Dragon area. So you see, only one man splits off right now. Arrow will solo the Mountain Dragon while the rest of his team defends mid. This is forcing TL to either A, start Baron, B, try to commit to a fight mid lane, or C, kind of do nothing. And right now the response is go straight to Baron. They're going to start this up, and Arrow needs to be moving up right now. He is trying to finish the Dragon, still has not moved up, but TL does back up off of that Baron, so they're not willing to commit, and this means OpTic have kind of outmaneuvered their opponents a little bit and gotten that free Mountain Dragon, and now it's up to TL to try to take advantage of this top lane wave.
Man, that attack speed feels so slow without the Hurricane. Just watch him. He does get it, and it proves even more of how much OpTic is holding if it's going to take Kog'Maw that much longer.
Oh, TL's looking to flank here. They're going to go for the engage. Arrow's not with them.
Two-man stun, elimination right in the middle. Olleh is on the back. Doublelift has PowerOfEvil in his eyes. He rends him down. But now, Akaadian and everybody in the back line. Doublelift has the entire enemy team in his eyes. And TL is just dogpiling on top of OpTic. Team Liquid turns the game back in their favor. Baron is theirs.
Yeah, it's going to be straight. There's no way to contest this with the Kalista, even though Akaadian is still alive here. Olleh will zone to make sure, and just a nice catch there from TL, but OpTic posturing too aggressively, not knowing if they were on the Baron, but Arrow wasn't with them. You can't afford to surrender kind of that type of a fight when you don't have your hyper carry with you, and they had done such a good job of maintaining vision, of playing calm, playing collected, but you see in this, they clear out the vision in the area. They're trying to move up to try to fight this. I think they thought that TL had base, but TL flanks from the side, Doublelift straight over the wall, catching PowerOfEvil, knocks him down, and there's just no way for OpTic to fight back with PowerOfEvil getting knocked down and Arrow not there.
Akaadian just is like, already sees this is a bad decision. They walk out. I think you made a perfect point. There were copious amounts of vision every time they needed to do anything in the bot lane. now they have a bit of fog of war, and it costs them an entire fight, and it actually costs them everything they built from the beginning.
Exactly. I mean, for the one time, they don't have vision of that flank that's coming around. They think they can move up as a 4-man squad. Normally, if some people are in base for TL, a 4-man squad is extremely safe to move forward with and kind of control that vision, but everyone was there pretty much for TL, and Arrow was not, and that means it's the Baron and a significant gold advantage now for TL, plus the split push being enabled here for Impact. So they want to keep pushing. They need to try to knock down some turrets and really get an edge, because OpTic, if they can sit back and keep the base alive, deny any inhibitors going down, they're still in a good spot because of their scaling.
This was that point of strength their coach was talking about, saying we're very good at kind of fixing those situations. We don't dwell on them. We understand what happened. We move on and correct it.
Akaadian on the side, perhaps trying to set up a flank if they were to overcommit, but right now both teams just kind of posturing over the blue buff, and
A little bit of damage there for Xmithie, keep himself safe. But they do feel, you can see from TL side, a lot more confident in pressuring small things like that blue buff, like the objectives. Baron now to mid lane. Zig on the right. Akaadian will be right there with his Bass brother if they do decide to go in, but they don't really have a target.
And it is a nice pink ward there over in the Wolf Pit for Xmithie, trying to deny the vision and set up the threat of a Sejuani ultimate over the wall.
Right.
You know, you can see that deciding a fight. If you catch the right carry, that can end a fight just like that. And for now, we do see Arrow back in base. Has gotten his Hurricane, which is going to help a lot with the wave clear, a lot with the team fight damage. Lemonation needs to be careful, though, because he's by himself and can't defend that turret.
You're toying with that there a little bit.
Yeah. Brave man.
Carrick. Impact. There he is again. Kind of forget about him a little bit. He's done such a good job at pushing that side lane. He is in that position where you want to fight the other team and you keep thinking about that nuisance on the side. He's done such a good job, and all he's doing is splitting. Been perfect. Gets himself in a bit of trouble here as another Lantern to safety, able to dodge out on a few of these ultimates, really putting OpTic at a disadvantage.
Yeah, certainly so. TL, getting a couple turrets in the mid lane. They're trying to continue pressuring, trying to extend the gold lead. And you have Pobelter up on the top side, who does have his teleport available to join the team if they need to do so. But you can see they're pressuring all three lanes. Sejuani pushing in the mid lane, 3-man in the bot side, and Pobelter pressuring top because they want everything baroned up. And that hook is not the one you want to go in on, as it is the Ornn.
18-minute Olleh would have won. Not 33-minute Olleh.
Yeah, exactly. They get a little bit too tanky at the 33-minute mark, especially with the Taric there. You got to be pretty sure you're going to burst them down if you're going to take that hook.
Exactly. Where are the pushes now? Actually, Xmithie getting a Raptor camp as they make sure they deny everything. It looks like he'll meet Akaadian for a quick second in the jungle. Those two say hello.
But either way,
pushing each other around right now.
A nice advantage gained from TL, but no death blow dealt, right? They extend the gold lead. They have done very well for themselves in the last few minutes. The pick into Baron, into a couple turrets, great. Yep. But OpTic did hang on. They did not lose an inner turret. They did not lose, any inhibitor turret or the inhibitor themselves. So they're still feeling pretty confident. And, the mental fortitude that you had talked about is something that's very important in these types of games. Not allowing yourself to get too frustrated by that messed up fight that gave over the Baron, that gave over an advantage, because you can still win this game. And for TL, they need to be focused. They need to continue to apply pressure. This has been the story the entire game, and so far, they have been pretty good at doing it. The Elder Dragon is another option for them. If they can get that vision with the Kalista, if you secure that objective, that allows you to play much more aggressively, especially with someone like the Malzahar who can kind of poke them out. With the Malefic Visions plus the Elder Burn, that can be an intimidating amount of damage.
I'm sure fans of TL are very happy to see this as well. The ability to weather the storm so early in the season, recognize situations, and they've done quite well. Doublelift still 2-0-5 after still a good early lane, but 0-0-4 where he was only picking up assists. Sometimes that can give you a false sense in the fights and you miss position due to the damage you think you have. But they're on track, and that fight has absolutely put them in the driver's seat now. 35 minutes in. You're looking at a 7,000 gold lead now for Team Liquid.
Definitely nice. I'm expecting Knight's Vow probably to be coming out next for elimination. He already has the locket for Arrow, so these are all ways to kind of buy time for that ultimate to land. But it's TL straight onto the Elder, and they do spot it now. OpTic will have to respond. You can't allow them to build up too many stacks, but they're forcing them back, and now they've kind of established the control over the area. We'll see if they're going to commit to an all-out fight. Both top laners aren't here. Here they go.
Ren's fell off the Elder Drake, but Doublelift still trying to focus it somewhat. If it gets low in the fight, nobody wants to take that aggression damage. As we do get Zig in. flash as well. Quickly out as he did not like
And
the
that's Jericho
positioning.
been down, but they may have
Oh,
caught him.
big hit. That's going to be Elimination going down. Yeah, like they said, if it's a long fight after Cosmic Radiance, this is going to be the fight for Liquid. They're able to just turn each member of OpTic into that pin cushion Doublelift, and the rest of the team now dogpiling again onto OpTic after the Elder Drake. Pobelter very low as the fight almost turns in the favor of OpTic. But you look back at the health bars of Team Liquid, and it was never to be.
Team Liquid with the clean ace, and they could potentially just go for the win here. Run it down mid lane. They have the mini waves pushing. They could go for a couple inhibitors. They could look to try to end, but OpTic really mismanaged their ultimates in that fight, was not able to get what they needed to get, and Liquid come out with the clean ace and an insane advantage.
Strength in the late game, understanding these very, very particular fights. It's going to be Team Liquid onto the Nexus turrets now, 12-6. One final kill coming down, and that is going to be Elimination back onto the fountain. Nexus turret 2 is going down, and that's going to be the Nexus. Team Liquid start off week number 1 of the 2018 season 2-0.
A great first week from Liquid, but OpTic made them sweat. That was a very competitive game down to the very end. Liquid out-executed in the final team fight. They take a clean team fight ace. That gets them the win, but this was a very competitive game. Despite the fact that OpTic goes down 0-2, they are, having some hope. This was certainly something that they can build upon.
I said it right in the beginning of the game, pat on my back. I did say it was going to be one of those situations where you play against a team like Team Liquid. If you do have that error, if you do have that loss, you'll know exactly what to look at. And they know exactly that one fight right below Baron, exactly what to look at and where they went wrong.
Yeah, certainly so. I mean, the Taric ultimate comes out early. They retreat with that. The shockwave hits only Olleh, who has Stoneplate active, which is basically negated completely. Call of the Forge God, the ultimate there from the Ornn, was not able to be redirected. Zig had to flash out as he TP'd in.
Right.
Everything really felt like it went wrong there for OpTic in that final fight, and they had such an ability to actually take a win in that fight if they were able to pull it together a little bit more, but the execution just wasn't there, and TL do just simply play better in the final fight, and they get the win.
I think we saw how each team was stretched under their pressure as well. TL was stretched under 18, 22 minutes of pressure, and then we saw that bit of pressure at the end of the game stretched OpTic into a position where they couldn't find the next fight. They couldn't find the next step up into an advantage.
And despite the fact that TL did not have the scaling advantage, one thing they did have is simply more calm play, better execution in the late game. They talked about it on the desk. This is a team that should have the better players, that should be comfortable if they can get to this kind of even game state in the late game where it becomes very complicated. You have to execute so well. And they did that, right? They waited for the perfect fight, and when the opportunities presented themselves, they pounced. They found the kills around the Baron that got them a big gold lead, and they find that fight. They kite out the cooldowns, and they get the perfect fight at the Elder Dragon that closes the game.
They make it look so easy after such a tough early game. That's why you never surrender. So to hear more about Game 1, let's go ahead and send it over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you very much, Riv. Things are looking good for this Team Liquid squad as they close out week 1 at 2-0. Riv said they make it look easy, but let's be honest, today didn't look as easy as yesterday looked up against TSM. And that's where I want to return to the win conditions set out by you guys at the top of the day. For Team Liquid, it was about respecting your opponents to the degree that you respected TSM, as well as picking towards late game. You had 2 win conditions, Jat. How well do you think they followed those win conditions?
Not great, actually.
Listen to Coach Jat.
Yeah, because you can see the Thresh Kalista lane is going to get outscaled, and they won the lane, but really not that hard. That was the first turret that goes down in the game, and then the Gnar is supposed to be the split push pressure that doesn't team fight as well. And it was more kind of about their creativity in the mid and late game that managed to win this game, because it didn't go well early, and there was a point in the game where Mark and I were both agreeing if OpTic plays this perfectly from here on out, they would win.
All right, well then on the flip side of the equation is that OpTic Gaming. You said be yourself, be true to the identity that is OpTic Gaming. Did they find it? I mean, PowerOfEvil on Orianna seems about as himself as he could possibly be.
It was a much
Gnasher's tooth.
You're right.
That was
there
the
was
problem,
one more step. There was one more step.
That's why they lost the game right there. Didn't stick completely true. No, I think they went more meta while still sticking pretty true to themselves. They give the best early meta like brawler in some sense in Jarvan 4 over to Akaadian. He's able to make some nice stuff happen early on. Kog'Maw 4 arrow, great pick, hyper carry, let him be able to be in position to carry the game. And Orianna for PowerOfEvil. Like we said, that's basically a signature champion. So I like the draft overall. It was just that when it became mid and late game, you could see the shot calling abilities.
Okay, yeah, to your point, there was a moment in the game the two of you are saying, given the goal differential, if OpTic plays correctly, they should win out based on the composition, and yet that's not what happened. So where was the breaking point? Where did this fall apart for OpTic?
In a few places, but most notably at the Baron fight, about 29 minutes, 30 seconds into the game. Look at where Kog'Maw is. Look at where the rest of OpTic is. That's a big problem. And yes, there's some really creative vision stuff that Team Liquid did. It kind of faked a recall, but you shouldn't have your OpTic players that far when your main carry is that far away.
Right, I mean, at 25 minutes of the game, I think it was a 1K gold lead here. And so for Team Liquid, that's very scary when you pick a Thresh Kalista bot lane. Yes, they were ahead. That was probably one of the stronger points on the map, but the Kog'Maw was online. If he's there in that fight, it could be very difficult. But like Jet said, Team Liquid, vision controlling around Baron, sit in the topside jungle for 30+ seconds, and all of a sudden, gets a little lax on the side of OpTic.
Seems oddly reminiscent of what Zabuteen had tweeted out. You know, a Q away. They feel they're a player two away, and I'm starting to see elements of that. A player two away from taking victories. The fact of the matter is, you got to pick up the W's. We're going to send it over to Avli May, though, who's standing by with the victorious mid laner.
Thanks, guys. I am here with Pobelter, mid laner for Team Liquid. Now, we had the POB versus POE in the mid lane. Can you tell me about that matchup?
Yeah, I mean, PowerOfEvil is a really good player. I respect him a lot. And when he was on Misfits last split, just at Worlds, you know, they were almost able to take down SKT. So, you know, I really respect his skills. And yeah, he played his like signature Orianna. Kind of sad he didn't go Gnash his tooth, but he was able to put a lot of pressure on me.
What do you think about the rest of OpTic so far?
I think the match was a bit tougher than we expected. They actually played pretty well and defensively against our picks, who were pretty strong early game. So we weren't able to get that good of a lead. But I think right now, maybe just as a team, we're a little bit stronger. So, you know, despite like the difference in team comp strength late game, we were able to overcome that and win team fights.
Now, old Immortal fans are super happy to see you continue playing with Xmithie and Olleh. What does keeping that old squad and sticking together mean to you?
I think we're just pretty good at like giving each other feedback inside and outside of the game, and just I guess our communication is probably a little better than all the other teams right now because we have that prior experience.
Wonderful. Well, I want to ask you, do you have, going into the split, do you have any goals either personal for yourself or maybe for the entire team?
Well, for the team, of course, we want to first off win in playoffs, both spring split and summer split. So I think that's our main goal right now, to just do the best we can. For me, I also just kind of want to prove that I'm really fucking good and just do the best that I can because, I don't know, it feels bad to like play the song and I feel like I've kind of been overshadowed a lot by players like Brigson and Jensen, so I kind of want to make that different this year.
Well, you guys had an amazing showing for this first weekend. Are there any teams that are kind of on your radar to look out for?
I think right now it's hard to gauge the strengths of all the teams, but as the weeks go on, I think we'll start to see who's stronger. You know, we can see both on stage and also when we play in scrims. So right now it's a bit hard to gauge the strengths of teams. Like we thought TSM was going to be really strong, and then OpTic might not have been that well put together, but we had a harder time against OpTic just now. So, but I think, you know, it's hard to see who will step it up for playoffs.
Well, thank you so much for this interview, and we're going to throw it back to the desk.
Thank you very much, Avli. Straight from Pobelter there, you know, hard to really rank any of these teams this early on in the season, even calling out that between their two matches, the one they just played was the harder of the two. And this is where I want to pose the question to you guys. Having already been pretty hot on this Team Liquid roster, having some high hopes and expectations for their season, does today's performance instill more confidence? Does it strengthen your belief in this roster, or does it lessen it based on the difficulty that they had?
So I think it lessens it to an extent that I'm not going to say like, man, this team's going to go 18-0, because there were definitely moments in that game where they could lose, and I'm still, after 1 week, kind of sticking with a lot of my perceived expectations that OpTic should be on the weaker end of the LCS. So if you are the best, you should smash them every time. And they didn't do that, but it does speak that they're still a very strong team, and they're pretty good from day one.
I think similar thing for me, it was nice to see them have creative shot calling, be able to win with an early game comp against somebody else who should be outscaling you. That's all nice to see, but they didn't execute on stomping bot lane and topside and all that stuff. It did become a very scary proposition for a little while there. So
yeah.
I agree that it would have been nicer to see them just crush them with this early game draft strategy. as opposed to be like, hey, we've been playing longer together, so we were able to come out ahead.
Yeah, it still is promising to a certain extent, though, because in week 1, with new rosters, it's rare to see a team that is coordinated enough to come back in a game in which they probably should have lost based on the compositions.
And I think it's fair to say that they probably did spend, as much as we were joking about it, a lot more time preparing for TSM.
Yeah,
so
clearly.
it's something that they were really, really excited about and probably, really perform well. And then maybe that's not like lack of focus or anything, but just you don't know what OpTic's going to do, whereas TSM is a very well understood team.
Right, Team Liquid, our first team to move to 2-0, so that's going to be, a boost of confidence for them moving forward. But, now comes the challenge of staying motivated and staying in that first place position, right? Too often we start to see the ego and things creep in. Teams start to dismiss those on the bottom half of the standing. So, looking at this, it looks pretty for Team Liquid and Team Liquid fans, but now it's about sustainability across 8 more weeks of play.
And you're going to have that crosshair on your back now that you're at the top.
Yep.
Everyone wants to take you down. You beat Team Liquid, you move up a lot of people's power rankings, and suddenly you're a new threat in the league.
I do think the hype machine's in full force for Team Liquid as well. They splashed all the money in the offseason, they put together the roster, and they showed up. Still undefeated.
They've made a statement. We're all watching to see how that statement ends up. Next, we've got TSM going up against FlyQuest. Meet us back here for Game 2 after the break.
Smite goes down to Xmithie. That's the stopwatch, and he is surrounded by 3. He'll be going down.
Kog'Maw.
Yeah.
Orianna mid. No one top. No one bottom. No one bottom. You guys
I can go for J4 too.
Yeah. Keep going.
Nice.
OpTic is going to try to stay safe.
Oh, there's that hook. A 1-2 hit. Double shockwave. Cosmic Radiance comes down on a good initiation.
I'm coming.
I think we have to kite the Taric ulti here.
Taric.
Actually, Taric, just one-shot Taric.
They're on me.
Behind you, Peter. Just run, keep running.
This is going to be the fight for Liquid. They're able to just turn each member of OpTic into that pincushion Doublelift, and the rest of the team now dogpiling again onto OpTic after the Elder Drake. Team Liquid start off week number 1 of the 2018 season 2-0. Welcome to Assist of the Week, presented by State Farm. Since we know the importance of lending a hand, we want to highlight players and plays that help the team bring home the big W. If you have a favorite assist during week 1 of the NALCS that you want us to highlight, tweet the clip with the hashtag NALCS and the hashtag StateFarmAssist, and we may feature it in a future episode. So get out there and bring some support.